Welcome. Let's do a really brief sound check. Can everyone hear? How are we doing in sound today? Everyone in chat, can you hear me? We're still having our fun technical glitches. We're just going to have to bear with it. Apologies in advance. This is the second computer that appears to be on its way out the door in the past 2 months. It's getting expensive. Galactic team and angels, it's getting expensive. Oh my goodness. I'm glad that you can hear me. We have Katara, who is one of the heads of the Galactic Council of 9. We're going to go through question by question, alternating between YouTube questions and Patreon questions for a live update. We did our world predictions for 2023 in January. And now what we're doing is kind of looking at things again, seeing what questions you have, going over some things to see if some things have changed. Did we meet certain predictives? Apparently we have met certain positive predictions and some not so great ones as well. So we're going to go over alternating between YouTube questions and Patreon questions, and just bringing them to the Council of 9 and seeing what kind of update we can get. This is throughout the next of the year, and anything else, if we see further than that, the Galactic Council will share further than that. So we'll see what they have to say. All right, super exciting. My Patreon link is above. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. And if you want more, Patreon is what makes this possible. So feel free to go check it out. There are hundreds of channelings there, and classes and spiritual development Q&As, sound healings, you name it, it's there. Let's get started. Take a Patreon question first. Katara's answer, this, I can feel it, is already going to be kind of hilarious. Crypto specific. She wants to know a little bit about cryptocurrency specifics of timing and preventative measures. Katara answers and she says, so go with the cryptos that have backing. She said, so you have what's coming up really strongly for the next 2 years. You have Ethereum and Bitcoin rising and rising and rising and rising. They're going to crash out really hard at the end of 2024. And she says that they will steadily rise again. There will be a brief opportunity in December of 2024, according to the council, for you to be able to afford these two and buy in. If you've been waiting to be able to afford it, there's your time. It is your only time. This is the hard thing about it. It's your only time again until February of 2024. Excuse me. 26. We have crash in 24 December, and then we have, they speak differently than I do, February 26 is the only other time that you're going to have. After February of 2026, she says you will not have any other time for a crash to buy in until 2029. So if you're waiting on those low numbers with particularly Ethereum and Bitcoin, these are your only times. She wants you to avoid Dogecoin, and she says coins that are lacking in the backing. And she likes Cardano, Ethereum, and Bitcoin because she says, you know, baby got back. Ha, 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 Katara. So go with the coins that are wonderful for the backing. Avoid ones that don't have appropriate backing. So a lot of things with those type of investments coming up. For those of you who missed that, the predictions on that with how we align, I'm going to have her repeat it. December of 2024 is the next huge crash for those two. So if you're a short-term investor, you need to know this. If you're a long-term investor and you want to get in there, because you will not have a chance again for another crash point for these two until February 2026, she says. All right. Insofar as a lot of the peak points and where they get to their highest, this year is the highest. You're not going to get, you're going to have some mild up and downs. She shows me like a ladder going up and down, 4 steps forward, 3 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, just standard up and downs for the rest of the year. So you're not going to have a big peak point for these two. And again, so many people are giving predictive values of Dogecoin being exceptional. And it's not. She's like completely avoid it, not going anywhere at all. So I'm sorry for those of you who made that investment. And then she really likes what she sees as the newest crypto that's on the rise. It's Cardano. So Cardano is going to be as big as Ethereum is now by 2028. So it's an investment that almost, a lot of people can afford to buy into right now. All right. And then insofar as draw outs, with a lot of shifts coming, where you need to be completely out of this, make your money and get out, because in 2029, by January, particularly for Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Cardano, you're going to have some problems. XRP, you're going to have some huge problems by 2029. You need to get out by mid-January. That's your absolute latest, preferably by the end of September the following year. But if you feel like you just want to keep waiting, for sure get out by mid-January. XRP, she says, my take on that is that it's going to continue to be just small rises. It's a long-term investment. It doesn't exactly have the backing that it needs. And it's going to have moments where it's not falling out of the sky, but it's not rising as much as the other three that she has mentioned. And XRP as a whole has some difficult problems by 2026. Its crash is harder. But its rise is really strong in 2027 out of the blue by, February. Again, we need the Februaries in this one. The end of February, headed into early March, you'll have a really good time where you can make a lot if you've invested by 2027. So certain peaks and falls, but there's just not a lot going on in terms of major rises and major collapses for XRP. Okay. Let's take a YouTube question. Do you see people using chips in their hands to pay for things? She said there is an option for that in a 3D, 4D construct for humans, but not until 2085. That's a long time from now. And it's only an option, not something that you have to do, that you're forced to do. She says it's not a one-world order, not even as far as 2025 in the council's predictions for Earth are we going to be using chips in that particular way. Now, you can get very specific with her, and that's typically the best to do because you can get the best outlook that way from the council. So let's go back to Patreon and get a question there. What's going on with weather and storms? I can't hit every special thing with that because it would literally take forever. So unfortunately, we're going to only give you, because we have so many questions today, we can only give you a minor view for some of the things, and you're going to have to get more specific if you want to know about that. And it's so many people from so many parts of the world. But for the US, what she's saying is that we have some interesting flooding coming in places that you wouldn't suspect would get flooding, like another one in California. We recently had that in California, and she said you can expect another major flood coming through areas that aren't even markers for flood, she says, by October of this year. It's an interesting time for a flood. I would suspect around spring, but there's something with landslides and flooding in October, and water, a lot of water in Southern California. So be in high water at that time. Maybe now that would be a good time to kind of go take a little mini vacation and get out of there for a while, Southern California. New York has an interesting hurricane season this year. Not so much that they have a hurricane, but they have a tropical storm that causes flooding in places that are definitely marked for flooding. This year, now this isn't until around November. The end of September or beginning of November is the alignment for that currently, keeping in mind that alignments can always change. Watch yourselves, New Yorkers, for that time frame with flooding. You remember that time when we had so much snow in Texas, that huge storm? There is another one coming up next year that's very similar to that in an area that just is not prepared for it. And it's interesting to me because I could easily define this area because I used to live there. So when she was telling me this earlier, I went, oh my gosh. It was right off of, used to be called Highway 99 when they first started building this parkway that headed out to the Sugarlands and headed out to Richmond and some of the suburbs outside of West Houston. So those areas are going to get like huge snow next year, and the highway is going to shut down, and they're not going to be prepared. There's a lot of freezing weather, things like that around the Houston area and the suburbs headed out towards Richmond and Sugarlands and right off that Grand Parkway there. Yep. Austin, you have a rough drought next year. You have some very dry times coming up, she says. We have another volcano coming up in not a major Hawaiian island, but a minor one next year. Midway through the year, that's going to be erupting, and a lot of people are going to need to be evacuated. So it's not... all devastation cannot be measured, she says. So she doesn't want to say it's not devastating because people will lose crop and land. There won't be a lot of deaths, but people will lose crop and land. We have more fires for California coming, but not until Oregon, Washington State, and California all have fires, but not until the summer portions of next year. So you're okay until then. Yeah, Iceland seems to be really good. Aaralyn seems to be really good right now. Expect some flooding in Central Ireland that's not more than typical around spring of next year. So these are the current weather changes, just more of the same. In 2025, Australia has more horrendous fires coming. So there are some interesting weather shifts going on for sure. And that's the weather predictions for now. We may come back to that if the questions arise, but for now, let's go to a YouTube question. When will the Russian and Ukrainian war be over? Will it be by the end of this year, and will Poland be safe? Poland is currently not safe. It's headed in that direction next, and it just follows through the chain of people there going in that direction. And it's not ending. It's not ending this year. It's not ending next year. It's not aligned to end the year after. So that's my unfortunate prediction from the council for that. Sending lots of love to these countries. All right, let's take another Patreon question. You got to get pretty specific if you want to know specific things in predictions. So he's just asking to know about media and Twitter. Twitter's around for a while, according to the Galactic Council. Some people are predicting the collapse of Twitter this year and next, and my council isn't seeing it. It's not there. It's not there. As a matter of fact, it strengthens, and then it gets worse around 2028. But a lot of platforms are getting worse around 2028 right now. So you could see a big decline in Twitter users, not necessarily a crash in Twitter or a loss in Twitter or a sale in Twitter, but just people aren't going to be using it anymore by 2028. So insofar as how we exchange information, there is a new social media giant on the rise that's similar to Rumble and YouTube, but it is not Rumble and YouTube. And by 2027, they will be the next big media exchange, the next big social media exchange, according to Katara. So that's how that's going. And that's pretty big because YouTube's been around for a while. And if you're not paying attention, you kind of don't get a chance. It's one of those get on there before it takes off. No one thought YouTube would take off either. But it's not, like people are still using Telegraph and things like this. Telegraph and Rumble really aren't going anywhere. I'm sorry to say. They don't get bigger and they don't get smaller. They're just right where they are. So, let's see. Let's take another YouTube question. You're wanting to know, will Trump do time? Katara says that is fascinating because there's not quite enough for that. Yeah, for that to happen. There's not quite enough for that to happen. Oh, I'm sorry, I mispronounced it, did I? It's not Telegraph, it's Telegram. Yeah, it's going to be a ghost before you know it, unfortunately, according to the council. Is the Brave browser relevant? It's helpful, but someone's going to hack it, she says. So for that, that's coming up by March of 2024. She said there's going to be a big problem with Brave going down and a lot of information being stolen from it and the people who run it. So that's a problem. It's a problem because people think it's safe and it's not going to be. And that could happen for any browser, she said. So don't get too comfortable, is what she's saying. Okay. Let's see. Next question. Jonathan, I'm reading your question and I don't really understand. If you're here today, just put that question about Silver Midway Point in a different way. I think that's more of an Ascension update type of topic. Is avian flu coming here? So this person who wrote this is from the US, and the answer is no, not now. We don't have another avian flu outbreak in the US that's big until the beginning of 2025, around like the end of January is where we're aligned according to the council. Yeah. Oh, geez, now I'm confused. Someone said there's an app called Telegraph and the other one is called Telegram. Katara said, don't be confused. Neither are going to make it. They're small fish in a rather big ocean. So unfortunately, they're not going to make it. Will we have a greater EP presence from any of the councils, one that is undeniable in this year? Katara says, the moment that happens, it is hidden or shot down. The presence comes in ways that is captured. By November of this year, we have our first major disclosure point for things that either aren't hidden from media or shot down because they're all over. Something goes viral. People catch it on their phones. It starts out in Asia, that particular disclosure, and then the same ships arrive in over Michigan, Wisconsin, northern Michigan, and then people begin to see it in Florida. And then they're landing everywhere and no one can hide it. It's all over the non-mainstream news, which is interesting that it doesn't make mainstream news right away, even though it's viral all over the internet. Interesting, huh? So we have some disclosure and people are having more, she says, around that time when that begins, people will begin to have contactee experiences, and they will be journaling about and having vlogs about their contactee experiences, which also can't be denied. So a lot of that kind of stuff is coming up, but it's not one of those things where you have governments accepting it and saying, yes, that happened. They're still just not talking about it. Yeah. Yeah. So they're flying over and hovering and sometimes getting close enough to land, but then just hovering is what she's saying. There are certain crafts that just do that. They can't actually land, but they have people have contactee experiences, and the experiences are talked about all around the world. People are journaling about it and writing about it and vlogging about it and talking about and finding similarities in the experiencing. I'm so sorry for the glitches. I've killed 2 computers in 2 months, so this one's on its way out. And the more I channel, the more I kill computers. So I'm thankful for your support, patrons, for giving me the chance to be able to afford another computer. I'm just not going to unpack it until I move. We're in the process of moving. They are good experiences. Thanks for asking that question, Wolf Mother, in YouTube chat. The experiences with the contactees are not abductee in relation. They are upgrades in etheric DNA, physical healings, miraculous experiences, people having dreams of the beings in the crafts, and then having the beings hovering over the crafts later. Things like that are happening. Yeah, so that's super exciting, because I see these things all the time, but I'm excited that people who aren't clairvoyant can see this. So expect healings, expect DNA upgrades, expect awakening of all sorts of gifts within you, and more invigoration of your purposes, things like that, more awareness of your past lives. It's a big awakening for humanity. Med beds, no. No, I'm not sure what kind of misunderstanding or where that came from, but we don't see that in alignment. People have been talking about med beds for about 12 years. Every year someone says, we're going to get a med bed, we're going to get a med bed. And when you see my predictions and it's never there, because I don't see it. I don't see it. Yeah. Do we see Trudeau resigning? She says it is a step down that appears to be that he's stepping down, but they're catching him in something. There's something, it is foul legally. There's something really that this person is hiding, but that doesn't come out this year. That's more towards mid next year. Yeah. That's going to be a step down, but it's because they have something legally against him, the person. Yeah. Someone said whether to invest in silver or Cardano. Well, I have to say, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you how to invest. It makes me super nervous. But both silver and Cardano, according to the council, and again, this is intuitive advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not qualified to tell you what to do. But yeah, it's going very well for both, according to the council. Go backwards in the predictions when this is over, and you'll see. Stocks, for America, there's a lot of big rising in medical stocks right now that have to do with AI, and not machine learning AI, not that kind of AI, but stem cell building, regeneration, cell regeneration. All of that's rising right now. Get in while you can, because by April of 2024, that's the time where you wouldn't be able to afford it anymore. It just goes. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you what other channels are saying. I don't know is Ishmael Perez or anything. I just, in my particular predictions, I have not seen them getting here. I'm not saying they're not being produced anywhere. I've had those visions as well, but I don't see it getting here is my problem. Yeah. You don't know this channel? This channel or the one I mean? I think you know this channel because you're talking in chat. Hi, Sarah. What predictions have changed for the better? Well, we avoided a 7-year-long war. That's huge. 7 years is what they predicted. And the mass awakening is getting stronger and stronger to where we have avoided that. So typically I golf clap on prediction avoidances that are terrible, but I wish I could just shake you and hug you and thank you, right? Bye. Okay, bye. Bye, Sarah Tucker. All right. Any wars starting, unfortunately. But do you need to know? It's one of the things she's asking. Some people want all these predictions and they want to know, and then they go, oh, everything here was doom and gloom. So do you want to know or not? If you want to ask hard questions, you're going to get hard answers. There are wars coming. A civil one in the U.S. Tell me again. Well, do you want to know? I'm not even going to tell you if you don't, but there's a civil war coming in the U.S. There's some problems in political relations between China and India right now that'll be front and center. There's a lot going on. And those are the two things that are on the forefront. All right? Those are the two things on the forefront. But we have the beginning. You'll notice it coming about with changes in gun law. Now, Biden doesn't really have the umph right now going into the election to make major changes. But if he wins this next election for the U.S., there's going to be immediate changes in gun law. And Americans are going to be up in arms because you're not going to like it. And that's what starts it. That's what starts it all. So that's everywhere, but particularly Texas, Utah, Arizona, Midwest, all the way out to the West. People are really upset over that. Mass school shootings are not stopping anytime soon, unfortunately. And that's being used in a sense to get you into shifting gun law. And then people don't want to shift gun law, but they're upset about the shootings. What are you going to do? This is not really, there's so many political views that could come in, and I don't want that a part of my channeling. But I don't see the shooting stopping. I see unfortunate changes in gun law, and I shouldn't say fortunate or unfortunate, but it's just that it creates a war. If you try to take guns away from Americans, that creates a war, right? I prefer peace too. Oh, no, I'm not assuming Biden wins. I am predicting that Biden wins. I predicted it last time, and I'm going to predict it again because that's the current alignment from the council, and they're often right. Granted, I feel that it's so neck and neck that we're going to keep watching it. That's the current alignment right now. And again, this is how predictions operate. You change it, you shift it, you want something different, then you vote differently, right? And you change yourselves. That could change if you want it to change. And we're going to keep looking at that. It feels so neck and neck, so neck and neck. There was a small opportunity that the council was talking about that we could have someone in new. And I was so excited about the potential of RFK. And then the council said, not this time, next time. If he runs again, not this time, but next time is his time. So I was a little disappointed with the council's prediction on that. Yeah. Huge population reduction in the future. They're not predicting it. They're not predicting it. We have like kind of a plateau of population right now. Not getting worse and not getting higher and not getting lower. We're just kind of plateauing right now. Karen Dole, you're going to have to be a lot more specific about on what news you want them to cover. Central banking digital currencies, not anywhere next to being applicable in predictions anytime soon, is what the council says on that. So nowhere in the making, not anytime soon, if ever. That's not going to happen. People around the world will break into further war if you mess with their money during hard times. So you have averted that. Whatever predictive valuation system, I know you never got it from me because I've never seen it, but whatever's going on, know that you have averted that if it were a possibility even to begin with. Will the dollar crash? That's not on the horizon anytime soon. Yeah, not on the horizon. Let's go to some Patreon questions for a minute. This was an interesting question about Australia. She wants to know if the collective in Australia will choose collective and individual sovereignty over the proposed racial divide and loss of rights being put forth as a referendum for constitutional changes. Will the voice of all the people matter? I'm going to have to tell you something there. The outcome of this looks really good according to the council, but it's hard fought and it's hard won. And it's hard fought because people aren't fighting. They're not standing up. They're voicing their opinions, but they're not actually changing their dependence on the system or changing their lives. So in this sense, that's hard fought, but it will be hard won. It will be one that will happen, but that will take a few years. We're not seeing the end of that problem for at least 2 more years. That's 2 years in the current alignment. 2 to 2.5 years is what the council is saying on that one. Jana, if you want predictions for Australia, you're going to have to tell me what you want to know. I go through what my filter brings. I can't understand a lot of political climate because I'm not a politically oriented person. So when you talk to a council, you can ask them specific questions and they don't have filters. So they will tell you, but you do have to ask them what you want to know, because they're galactic beings. They don't live here on Earth and understand your systems, but they can tell you what they see. Next question, student loan forgiveness lawsuit. The outcome of it is neutral, not overly positive for people who still owe. They don't immediately get out of it, but there are some positive shifts in the outcome in terms of direct payment plans that are easier or ways to do this easier. Something is shifted by adding on an addendum with further timelines, which isn't exactly a win, but it's not a loss either. It feels kind of like not enough decided about that. Yeah. Are we to store food and water? The council said you would be really silly not to right now because things could change at the drop of a hat with where we're aligned in the whole world, not just the States, in the whole world. So yes, you are to store food and water, especially water. Next question, is there any resolution found for the migrant crisis that is presently increasing in the U.S. and displacement of so many families? It's on the climb towards a solution. And the solution comes within 3 months after the next election. And it is a peaceable solution. It's not just shipping everyone home or continuing to separate people. There will be some laws that begin to be proposed, and then they will make it through legislature in 2024. So it stops the actual separation of mother and child and family members in that way. People do have to stay together, but that's not a full resolution. I'd say this is only a partial resolution, is what the council is saying about your question. Why is the government handing out satellite phones? Katara said, which one? Each of them have their modus operandi. We can't talk about everything on here, but she just goes like this because they want to. They want to track you. But each of them have their unique agenda. YouTube doesn't like these topics very much, by the way. This is when they kind of put me on shadow ban for a few weeks if I go too deep. But I'm sure many of you can follow what the council is saying. Right. More electric cars for this year. Yeah, for this year. As we go into the next 10 to 15 years, you'll see interesting things like hybrids you've never seen before, the use of plasma energy technology by 10 years from now. I've gotten a lot of interesting predictions from the council about where electric cars are going. But with all the geomagnetic storms coming this year, next year, and the year after, you will also find that they have to continue to upgrade because that'll throw an electric car off like nobody's business really fast, right? Yeah, that didn't work, medieval lady. I don't want to read that even out loud because it's very much conspiracy theory operated, but there was something in what you said there that is true, but it didn't work with the 15-minute cities. Planned is one thing, execution is another, is what she said. Let's take another Patreon question. Will the housing market start to go down in prices specifically in California? This person wants to go. Not in California at all. You can't expect a drop in California for the next 6 years. The Midwestern countries become slightly more affordable by 2027. So now is the closest time that you have to be able to buy a home. Now is a good time to buy a home. Unfortunately, that's not going to be that much easier. And if that were to crash out of the sky again, and then you can afford it, that means other problems are on the rise, like war. So this is a little bit predictive in nature, is what she's saying, that you're not going to go into as many more wars if you think. But we do have to recover. We have to recover. Will Trump be pres? I already answered that from the council. It's looking right now in the alignment that it's not going to be Trump. So I'm sorry, guys, on that. Where's the safest place to move? Right now, you need to be more concerned about climate changes. That's real, guys. Even science tries to shoot it down, but there's all sorts of problems. So instead of just running from the problem, what can you do? You know, this is why I've been channeling more of humans from the past lately and talking to ancient Mayans, because they knew how to store water. You guys need to go watch that. They knew how to store water, and they gave specific instructions for how to store water. And you need to be thinking about how to make and keep and store water and clean it, right? So that's getting out of the dry zones. Being near water is helpful, but not oceans. All of that for the next 2 years. Yeah. What states are impacted by the Civil War? I believe we've already gone on over that. When the U.S. goes into that, which isn't this year, it starts in Texas. I'm sure you guys aren't surprised. It spreads to Utah. It's the deeply red states that are very angry about gun law changes, and there will be gun law changes 3 months after the next election, according to the council. Dry zones. New Mexico, Texas, this is dry zones. Desert, not necessarily high desert, but desert areas. Yeah, you have a well, but what's its source? Where does it get its source from? Can that dry out too? How deep is it? I'd have so many questions, is what where I'm kind of feeling about that. Let's see, let's take a next question. How will the economy do for the rest of the year? Will inflation stabilize or continue to rise? The counselor is saying inflation is continuing to rise, but in minute brackets and portions. And it stabilizes by June of next year. And this is very, very interesting because there's like a private fight about this behind the scenes between China and the US, and the political tensions are tight. There's a private war on the rise between China and the US. I'm sure many of you are not surprised. So, you know, that whole debt ceiling thing you guys are worried about, we have problems. We have problems with that. And are they really going to give us another extension, or are they going to lift it? Like, what's going to happen again? And how many times will we have to ask? What happens now? You know? So there's some extreme political tensions rising this year between the States and China. Tensions are tight about this, and it's going to be at its peak around July the 6th and 7th, according to the council. Nilo, I need you to get very specific about the other question. I channel things and then I don't remember. What change is coming that's loving and hopeful? Maria says she's tired of hearing about the next virus, flood, fire, monetary crash, political disruption, etc. Oh, I hear you. I'm right there with you. I just want to live and be generous and support people and give my time. We support, many people in many ways. And I want to continue that and not worry about, are we going to have enough? I just don't have that alignment to worrying about it. So I understand what you're talking about and understand when you say you want collective attention to be toward the positive, but people are also really afraid. And sometimes knowing what to look out for kind of helps them know how to invest, helps them know where to live, how to prepare, and people want to be prepared. So I can see that perspective too. But the most hopeful outcome I'm seeing is this disclosure coming up that goes viral on the internet this November because of the etheric DNA upgrades that are happening thereby, because of the vast amount of people that are waking up at that same time. It's a huge portal in November for that to happen, according to the council. That's incredible, right? So I'm seeing a lot of changes in people listening to the land, and more industrialized farming is shifting into permaculture this year and next year because they have to, not because they want to, but because they have to. That's positive. So I look forward to that, to more mass awakening. Next question, what happens on 7/7/2023 as it's really close to a 7-planet alignment? It is a massive solar flare. Big, interesting things. I think you mean 2024, though, don't you? No, you don't. You put 2023. That's interesting because I felt a confusion there. And now Katara is saying it's both. There's a flare on that date this year, and there's a flare on that date next year. And it is pretty hard. It hits pretty hard. And not just to the standard extent where you're having ascension headaches and whatnot and getting super tired. That you know how to work with. That you should expect by now. But this is situations where you do need to store water for it, prepare for it, expect some crop issues and some animal issues, and backups in the supply chain demand on that date, both this year and next year. Okay. Is it safe to fly in airplanes right now? It is. They're having some mild disturbances in the electrical systems from these solar flashes that are really aggravated by the geomagnetic storms and disturbances from these incremental pole shifts that are occurring. So the incremental pole shifts, being aware of them, and the solar and geomagnetic storms that follow. It's very, very important to not fly during these hot times. Planes haven't crashed yet. They seem to be kind of saying, okay, we're having more technical difficulties. They're landing planes. They're saying, okay, we're shutting down airports for brief periods of time. And not really saying why. You'll get a lot of that coming up this summer and next summer. So this is the beginning of some problems. Not terrible problems, but just we have to ground our planes and figure out what's going on. And ships are doing the same. That was one of my predictions, and it actually happened shortly thereafter. After my January 2023 prediction, I predicted that there would be some landing of a major airport where they just shut it off for at least a few hours or half a day, and they did. It was crazy. All of the FAA shut down, grounded all the planes because of these storms. Let's see. Can you not give acronyms? Because I'm not in the know. I don't follow a lot of things that could be deemed, some people call it research, some people call it conspiracy. So when acronyms typically happen, it's something that I'm not aware of, or it's typical conspirituality that I'm just kind of out the chain, not even. I talk to angels all day. I have no idea what RV means. So what is that? Tell me more. Can you use it outside of an acronym use? I don't want to wait for long. I'll go on to a next question. Aid currency revaluation. Okay. RV is a financial investment. Okay. Thank you. So is it a particular type of currency? Tell me a little bit more, because the councils don't know what it is and they're not concerned about it either. Reevaluation for currency. Okay. For foreign currencies. Which one? For all currencies, for American currencies, for just foreign currencies, for backed currencies, for silver, for I don't think it's silver because Qatar is saying no. Oh, dinar. It's for dinar? Okay. She says it's not coming up anytime soon. Whatever it is, it's not on the horizon. Dinar. Okay. And dong. Okay. Will people be 100% vegan? No, not anytime soon. But by 2027, there will not be a lot of industrialized farming around, and not a lot of people are really wanting to be into farming. So it goes into a lot more veganism by then. Let's take another Patreon question. Are we at a right time for more intentional communities to start soon? Katara says yes and no. There will be a lot more intentional communities starting, particularly spiritual communities, farming communities, all sorts of agriculture and homesteading communities are starting. But we have all these communities starting when we don't have work ethic in our young people. I'm sorry, young people. It's hard labor, right? And you don't want to do it. It's what she's saying. So when you have people wanting that but not wanting the work, we're still kind of in a growth period with this. Nisara Gesara does not exist. Does not exist. Was completely misunderstood. We'll say it 1,000 times over. Those promises are not on the table. It's not going to happen because it was never true. It was deeply misunderstood. Yeah, people are like, yeah, because we're bordering onto conspirituality again. And we got that off of probably a QAnon board, and those things are only mildly true. There's like an ounce of true, and then they hook you in, and then the rest of it just keeps you down a big old rabbit hole. Quantum financial system, again, we've predicted this before. It is not anywhere on the agenda or on the horizon. Not anywhere in your current alignment. There's too much 5D in the world right now for any of those things to happen. Mental health improving. In some countries, there's some improvement, she says, in Sweden, in Norway, in France, in Germany, for sure. There's massive improvements in the mental health system that will continue for the next few years and get, better. Yeah. I know, BitBabe, it's upsetting, but I will not lie to you. If it's not showing up in my predictive systems and I'm not seeing it, I will tell you that. I won't just tell you what all the other more popular people are saying. It just is misleading. It's not happening. People have been talking about it for 15 years and it's still not happening, and it's not going to. No one's going to come down here and give us a big old handout or give us something so upsetting that suddenly we get a free card. We're going to have to bail ourselves out with the help of the ETs that are in our soul family. Not alone. We have help. All right. Now, they're not here to bail us out either, but they're here to wake us up. They're here to help us shift it. They're here to help us know what to do about how we can change things together. Will channeling be more accepted in society? Yes, but only because it has to. Like 2023 is like, she says it's accepted, but it's begrudgingly being accepted, where people are like, yeah, it's a real phenomenon. It's unexplainable. Miracles are happening and I have to accept it. People are kind of like that as a whole, because you don't have as many people fully aware of what it is. And then after COVID, there were so many people coming forth and just wanting to make money and scam you and claiming that they were channelers. You still have a lot of that going on. Eyes open, no fear. But there's a lot of that going on. So how she's asking you to kind of look at that. How can channeling be more accepted when there's so many people claiming they're channeling and just scamming people and hurting people and using it just to get power? And channeling has been taken over in that sense. And now you wonder what's true, what's real, and what isn't. Who's here to hurt you? Who's here to scam you? There's a lot of fears of channeling right now, with good reason. Will there be another health pandemic? She says that there is a more mild one coming along the way. We've talked about it before. CRS, and then a split off of that. So when she means split off, she means it develops into an even more powerful fungus. So being that it's a fungus, it's not spread in the air, nothing like that, but it's still highly contagious. And it's very gastrointestinal oriented. That's coming up for next year. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, bleach everything. Bleach is the only thing that gets rid of that. What kind of financial system do the Galactic Council use? They don't. They don't use money. Goodness, I haven't met an extraterrestrial race in the higher realms that actually use that. I've seen some draconian race use currencies, but it's very 3D, and most of the beings are not 3D. So, they don't know the answer to that, but they don't believe that it is right now in terms of what you're asking, Map Mama. Anything positive for the entertainment industry? She says artists, musicians, healers, mystics, 2023 to 2025 is for mystics. It's like a whole trifecta of new types of art, new types of music, new types of sound healing that you've never heard of before, new types of regression. Regression that involves DNA activation, and DNA activation that's also a part of regular Reiki sessions. There's new things coming out left and right? So insofar as musicians, it's the year of the self-promoted artists where people make it big just from their homes, just from their garages, just from, using Logic Pro X or Ableton or something even more affordable than that, where they are creating their own albums and getting discovered by the music industry, but refusing to sign on. So the whole record system of going to, someone who's going to pick you up, get a record label, like that whole era is ending. And that's only going to be alive for the next few years, and then it'll start to slowly decline as more of these powerfully talented musicians begin to record, produce, and become their own executive producers of their albums and sign themselves. So that's super exciting for artists and musicians alike. It's the year of the mystic. So many people will be able to tap into their healing abilities. I won't say more people are being able to channel. I'm seeing a lot of people claiming that they're being able to channel, according to the council. Many people are claiming it or misunderstanding or even purposely misleading you. But there's not a lot of true trance channels and true clear channels anymore. Those are two things that are still quite rare insofar as someone being real with it. But everyone can channel at their own level for other things. But insofar as psychic channeling, tapping into the future, channeling to talk to angels, channeling to contact the divine, you're doing it in a different way. You're doing it through art. You're doing it through writing. You're doing it through music. You're doing it through conscious parenting. So in that sense, Everyone's learned to channel themselves, right? But there aren't a lot of true galactic channels, angelic channels, um, true remote viewing with bilocation. There's not a lot of that going on for the next 10 years. Those type of abilities still haven't awoken in most people. Explain to me what you mean, Brendan, by universal basic income. See, I don't follow typical words that people use for systems. I don't understand dualistic systems. I'm not trained in it. Right, so you'll have to be a lot more clear with me. Will there be more resources and help for older people? She says that becomes atrocious this year and next year. And many of the elderly are going towards their ombudsman and they're going towards trying to get more help from their governments because terrible things are happening, particularly in the assisted living and skilled nursing facilities. And then there are some laws that come out about 4.5 months after this next election in the US in particular. So laws get better there. They already are better in many other countries. France makes some major improvements. Germany makes some major improvements. The UK makes major improvements in their care of the elderly. But there's some laws in the US about treatment and more monitoring of how people are treated, and about how and when to accept people. You can't just transfer the elderly around like their currency and just move them from hospital to acute rehab center to nursing homes to assisted living to here to there and just do it because it's making you money. There's a lot of laws coming out to prevent that after the next election. And so that's shifting in the US. Okay, let's take another question. Insofar as, this is a good one. Insofar as the stock market in June, will it continue rising like the past few months, or do we see a pullback / beginning of a crash? Right now, and again, I'm not a financial advisor. I always have to tell you when I answer this question, I'm not qualified to give you any financial advice. I am an intuitive who channels and predicts. So this one from Katara, she said, is going to rise until mid-July, have a major crash in August, go straight up and fly up. It hasn't just flown up in a while. It's been just slow increments, but there's kind of a here to there, a big, big rise of over 6% in September. And then slow incremental changes going up until January of next year. And then there's a crash again, back to what you are right now, not to lower. So if you can follow that, maybe that'll help you. No, there's not an impending nuclear war for the US. To answer that question, China relations again are worsening. Go backward in the channeling later to get what Katara said about that one. I think we did cover major disasters in terms of just basically, yeah. You got very specific about this question, and this helps me to understand 3D terminology because I don't understand 3D systems and terminologies well. She asked me, does the US debt ceiling get raised or does it default on debt? Katara says it gets raised this time, but it doesn't last long as usual. And the next time it's going to be a complete default. And this is a problem. This is a problem, to get more specific about her answer. No personal advice today, please. Take that to a reading or bring it to the next Q&A. I just did a Q&A this morning. You just missed it, darn it. Is the Galactic Council of 9/6 density or 7th density? She says it doesn't really work that way. We will acclimate to whatever density we need to in any given moment to reach you. So right now we have to acclimate to the major collective, and the major collective on Earth is 4th density. So in this moment, we are speaking to 4th density people because there are very few people on Earth who are 5D, who are experiencing 5th density. And when you acclimate to become more, experiential in 5D, we will shift and become 5D for you. But we're not set in one density. Should we focus on recycling? Yes. And even more so. She says, get a deepening in the business of it. Understand. Because in the US, most of the stuff that you put into mixed recycling just gets thrown back into the dump. So no, do your research and figure out what is truly recycling. What is it? Because that still isn't shifting this year, and it needs to shift this year. That's not an alignment for shifting until mid 2026, and it needs to happen sooner. So that's something, if we work together, we can change it. When is the majority of humans resonate to 5D? Around 2200. That's her answer. She says, look, you're here not to be in 5D all the time. Earth is a learning planet. It is an Earth school. It is like grad school. And if it was all 5D, do you think you would expand? Probably not. Karen, don't use acronyms because I won't even know what it means. Just spell it all out for me. Will Hawaii gain sovereignty in the near future? She says, it's not that simple. It's stages of sovereignty over the course of the next 6 years. 6 years for Hawaii as they currently stand. Now let's change it. She said, let's change it. You can always do that. You can always align differently. What can you do to change it? Primarily speaking, you need to run yourselves. It needs to be more self-governed, become less dependent, become more interdependent upon the people and the lands themselves. We're not talking about chemtrails today because some people believe in it, some people don't believe in it, and I'm not touching that with a 25-foot pole. I love you. Stop asking. Will food prices drop? That's a great one. Thank you. She says they make a bigger drop by December of this year, but not until then. And it holds for 6 months, December, January, February, March, April, May, and then a huge drop again in June of 2024. So it's interesting. Drops and rising and drops and rising with food prices going down and up. So yes and no, because the moment they drop, they only hold it that way for 6 months before they rise again and then drop again suddenly. Will South Korea be attacked during a war? Yeah. I've been having dreams about that one this year, particularly. And when I asked Qatar about it for current alignment with South Korea, it's looking really bad for September of next year. So you have some time to prepare and be safe and think about that and hopefully change it, hopefully align differently. Maybe we can get together for a mass meditation, a group meditation. Yeah. Gas prices are the lowest that they're going to be, she says, in the US until, give me a date, January of 2024, unfortunately. Yeah. Mo Atala, you're going to have to be more specific about what you're asking regarding Lebanon. Oh, Emily Fantino, I love you. This question right now pisses people off, the what can we do to change the world, because it does start here. And it's always what the councils say is that we need to heal our earth, heal our bodies, heal ourselves, heal our thought streams and our mentalities. And they're right, but no one wants to hear it. Right? It's like, thank you so much, I Sutherland Jennings. Where are you from? Are you from the South? Okay, do you think that we already talked about crypto market information, Kyle? Let's see. Lisa wants to know, if more people are moving to an organic diet. Yes, that is at an all-time high and getting even more so all over the world, in first world countries at least, not so much for third world countries because they don't have that access. But many more people in first world countries over the course of the next several years are starting gardens, understanding how to raise animals properly. Chickens for their own fresh egg supply, all that. Yeah, so people stop going to big stores as much over the course of the next several years, but you have interesting situations arising in that time where you have so much supply and chain problems in that time frame in your current alignment that it just makes it easier. And here's the other thing. I don't know if you've noticed it, but your food doesn't taste the same. I grew up growing my own food. I know what real food tastes like. US in particular tastes like somebody just coated it with plastic. It tastes horrible. So some people, like myself, are starting to grow because it tastes so bad and it's healthier. Soil regeneration is still a problem, though. We still have just very dry, stripped vegetables and fruits. So keep that in mind. Regenerate your soil. Use your compost. Learn composting. It's a good year for that. This is a good season for it. Is Earth kept artificially in 3D to make it into a playground? She said no. Earth isn't artificially kept 3D. Those times of influence are over. There was a time of great influence, and then it was shown that you can't handle influence. And you're not being influenced. You're being assisted and helped, but you're not being influenced. The last time extraterrestrials came down and gave you a gift, it was so much influence. It was a gift. But the world changed. Nuclear bombs were created. So now the type of gifts you get are internal gifts, downloads, activations, awareness. So no, Earth isn't being held back. It's just that everyone that starts out on the journey starts out in 3D. And that is because you want to grow, you want to master, and you want to do it with 1,000 different aspects of you in 1,000 different ways. And you love it. You love expansion. But no, you're not being held back, she says. Oh, Betty Medina says apples don't taste like apples anymore. It's so true. My goodness. Oh, that would be so wonderful. Can all the spiritual leaders and ascended masters coordinate a mass global meditation? If they would collaborate, I reach out to people all the time for certain things that are similar to that. Well, not all the time, but specifically the past few years, if I reached out to people, I don't get anything back. Nothing back. Right? So it's like more people are busy doing other things, and we need to come together. I completely agree. But sometimes it gets difficult to keep reaching out to people if they don't reach back, you know? The best jobs and skills to learn for the next 10 years coming, she said, permaculture, regenerative agriculture, more sacred channeling, sacred writings, sound healing and sacred music. We need trades to come back, and we need light workers to be operating the trades. We need more plumbers and electricians and construction workers and true trade workers. What we don't need more restaurants. I'm sorry, restaurant industry, but we have enough. So that's one of the things that you'll see go by the wayside after 10 years. We will have about half the amount of restaurants in the US that we have now because people don't want to serve, they don't want to cook, they don't want to work. So the food's getting sloppier, it's not tasting as good, when they're not keeping employees. A lot of that isn't getting better. Yeah. How do you put nutrition back into your soil? You can do your research on it, but composting is amazing. It really is. Learn composting. Is there a coming U.S. legislation that helps with interest rates? She said, not this election. in the election after that, the next election in the US, there would be some shifts that help with interest rates, but not this one. Yeah. Yeah, message me, Karina, but not on YouTube. I don't even know if people can message on YouTube. I think they took the message system away like 3 years ago. Email me. Yeah. No, don't put it in chat. Yeah. Just email us. Will there be food shortages that get difficult to get around for those of us with small budgets? There already are. The good news about that question, according to Katara and the council, is there are more shortages, but more programs to help with the finances of those shortages, more programs, more sustainable education programs to help with both budgeting and with more access to funds. After this next election, that's something that goes into legislature. Right now in the US, there isn't a lot of welfare, right? In other countries, you have that. So there's interesting things that happen about 7 months into the next election to do with getting money that's going to help you meet those budgets. So more support that's different for people who really need it, particularly parents. Will the U.S. Federal Reserve raise interest rates again at the June meeting? They want to, but they don't, is what Katara is predicting for that. They want to. It's a big fight. It goes head to head. In Congress, there's so many issues with that. No one really agrees, but they don't raise interest rates. Phew, some positive news. It's hard to find organic food. Yeah, exactly. That's why we need to grow it. Yeah. You're looking for the type of expansion that you're in, Sai Priyatham. On the dualistic expansion. That's why you're here. You're looking for this exact expansion that you're in. So you can't do that in oneness. You can't do that in spirit bodies. You can only do those glorious things here. So it's not a matter of what type. There is one type, and this is it. No one else expands. No one else does what we're doing. This is the glory of earth. Yeah. Will we reconcile? Get more specific. Yeah. No, Drew, they actually don't. Free will is much bigger than that. I think I've covered that with some other things. Will Starlink help? To the extent that they're allowed, we've asked for non-interference, but there is some degree of help and gifts coming from that program, is what she's saying. I'm looking for questions here in Patreon for a second that I haven't already covered. Just give me just a second. Amy says, so far this year, every month has been very different with cosmic energy. I completely agree. It's been a tailspin. It's like up and down and all over the place. And I feel like I'm back in the high school drama class. Put on this, change real quick, and I'll put on that and go backstage. And it's just a little bit like that. Like you're preparing for something and where you have to wear many hats, Katara is saying, and you have to understand your multidimensional talents and face a lot of fears in June, but in a way that feels like courage. So what I can tell you about the energy of June, insofar as a cosmic energy update, is that much more people are facing their truth and they're speaking it. They're speaking in a courageous way, but they're speaking compassionately and with deep respect towards other people and other belief systems. So that's a huge lift from the anger in the collective that we felt in Cosmic Energies last month. Oh, well, this month actually, because we're still in May. Yeah. I don't know the name of it. She hasn't really told me that song, Gloria. Is there birth or death? Katara said, well, no, it's not real, but it's a construct that you love, and it happens here on your planet. Is a big California earthquake coming soon? Let's ask. 7.2 in October. It's big. That's big. California, closer to San Diego. That's what she says. Goodness. Are there any cures for cancer, diabetes, or dementia? Let's ask. No, but there are some interesting cures coming up for rheumatoid arthritis sufferers this year. Very interesting. It's not a complete cure, but it is like a remission state, which no one thought possible for rheumatoid arthritis in particular. Diabetes has some interesting medications coming out that are extremely helpful and less damaging. Metformin is a terrible drug. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I can't advise you on what to take for it, but I know there's a new medicine coming out for diabetes that is incredible, and it'll be fully available by December of 2024. Lyme disease, she says there are a lot of natural cures coming out, but they're not headed into the allopathic realm in ways that are covered by health insurance this year or next year. But there are a lot of naturopathic cures coming out for people who know a lot about demyelinating and the presence of MTHFR and its connection to Lyme disease. Cypriathum, I don't know what you mean, unfortunately, with the word charistus. Hey, Tara from New York, thanks for the love. Back at ya. Jedi Lady, we already answered that. Just back up to the beginning of the channeling later. Ashley, with MS, she says there are some interesting things just going into peer review trial right now, but they won't be out of peer review trial to show progress with it until 2026. So there will be some amazing progress with allopathic cures for MS and remissions of MS, but only in one type. Let me see if I can get further information, because there's more than one type of MS, she says. It's for the more rare type. Yeah. And they're going to continue going after that. And then we'll keep looking at that. Yeah, I hope so too, Layla. With Lebanon, will there be a food shortage? Yes. It's a really terrible one by January of next year, but it remedies itself by July of next year. Yeah. Sea rising, you don't get problems in that way, or earthquakes for Lebanon for the next 3 years, but you do have a looming war. It's not getting easier for Lebanon in that there's one still going and there's one coming. My heart breaks, particularly for Lebanese women, when I try to look at that. So I don't want to start crying. That's one of the things that I'm not seeing good predictions for. And it's like, US, you have your toe dipped in everybody else's business, but you're not helping with this. It makes me really angry, and I'll not be able to channel if I get this mad and sad. Insofar as chronic fatigue syndrome, let me ask her. She said by 2025, a lot of allopathic doctors in the US, the UK, Canada, France, and Ireland are in agreement that they can find and treat the virus that causes chronic fatigue. that they can find it. They don't pretend that it's nothing anymore. And they do have powerful treatments for it. Yeah, Diana. My visions just tear me apart in my heart when I look at Lebanon right now. They need help. A lot of it. Yeah. Gloria, no, not directly to answer that, she said. Will there be a cure for muscular dystrophy? There's a lot of failed studies coming out. They're in the midst of them, but it's not working, or it's kind of just fair to middling in the results. She says that for muscular dystrophy, you'll see a lot more progress by 2027, in the spring of 2027 in your current alignment. Yep. Is 3D print technology a good technology for missing limbs? The council says there is extreme progress being made in this way, but when it comes to the vital organs, the real mind of the soul, which is in the heart mind, this is why the heart can't easily be duplicated. So you'll notice that it works, but only in certain instances. And it works, but the person's changed. And it's like, without the same God mind that's affected by a natural heart, the person is very different. And this is a bit of a problem. So they will fail. They will medically fail. And then in the ones that don't, the person will be changed mentally and in their spiritual structure, which isn't great. So just trying to get people to live forever, we're going in that direction in the world, but then at what cost for doing something unnatural? The heart itself, when it's replaced, it holds the soul of everything. And there's a whole mind of God in there, in the structure of the heart. It's amazing. But then when people see it failing in science, the medical communities begin to research taking stem cells and creating in that way and adding it to the technology of 3D. And that is something that's working. But it takes until 2028 to get there. Lupus isn't getting a lot of attention right now. To answer your question, Gary, she says that there's some things on the horizon that get a lot better by 2029 in the current alignment. But the good news is many people are understanding the mystical connection to lupus and how it awakens them. Yep. Sai Priyatham, is that your question, or are you just like giving me information on it? I've never noticed that Putin was associated with a group called Charistus. I noticed Putin being associated with Pleiadian renegades and Alpha Draconians, and sometimes Andromeda, but I haven't noticed him being associated with an A2 group known as Christus. From what I'm understanding about galactic history, I haven't noticed that group being associated. I've never even heard of the name before. I've never met any ETs from there. Is this a real thing? Because as a galactic historian, I should recognize that, and I don't. And it's not, when I read into it and ask the council, that's not who they tell me that he's associated with. And then they are kind of looking at me like, what is that? Did someone just make that up? Like, where did that come from? I'm hearing so much these days about different ET groups. And if I'm able to identify currently 889 ET groups, and I've never heard of Charistus. Just saying. Is heart math a good solution? Well, she doesn't really want to like give you that kind of thing, because this is more of a prediction-based channeling. Who brings us plasma technology? It is an unknown scientist currently. We've talked about him before. He is an engineer who also works on free energy devices and devices that clean water and make electricity out of air. He's unknown. He's somewhere in Texas right now, if he hasn't moved already. And he's really humble. I don't even think he knows that he's going to do all these big things, and he's not backed by some global institution. Yeah. Yeah, this is why I get confused, Karen, exactly when someone tells me about a different ET group and I've never heard of them, and I go ask the council and they're like, did someone just like look at the stars and say, yeah, there must be beings from there, so let me call them this? Like, where do we get that from? It's interesting. Yeah. Okay. I'll take one more question. With government shutdown, no, we're not headed in that direction. Not anytime soon. We have until 2029 in our current alignments with most governmental shutdowns, but it does begin in the US and UK. No one's surprised on that. Is TikTok going away sooner? She says slowly, a little bit at a time. By the end of 2024, very few states will allow TikTok anymore. It is going away. So if you like TikTok, make use of it. I think it's pretty fun, but I don't like being spied on. No one likes that, right? So no. Power outages are associated mostly with the geomagnetic storms coming up these next few years, and we're going to have quite a bit of them. Quite a bit of them coming up this year and next year and the year after, sporadically throughout those next few years. So you do need to be prepared in your homes for more power outages in the UK and US and Canada. All right. Thank you, guys. I think I'm going to go ahead and crash out and go take care of my family and get some rest before I see you tomorrow. And thank you guys who were with me for my spiritual development Q&A on Patreon. I will be doing a Humans from the Past channeling of the Essene community in Qumran next week. So the link's at the top of the chat if you want to join that up. Thank you for your support. Thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate you. I love you. And I will see you very, very soon. Bye.